Mike Abadir, one of the best agents in the business, has been working in the business for a long time, represented a lot of high-profile players, knows what's going on behind the scenes. Mike also has been involved working for NFL teams as well, worked on both sides of the bargaining table, and he knows this stuff back and forth. And believe me, I talked to a lot of agents and people in the industry, and the reason why I have Mike Abadir on here is because he knows, in my mind, he's the best communicator and knows the issues as well as anyone else. A lot of people want to come on the air and talk about it, but I try to pick the very best guests who communicate in the best way and who are the most knowledgeable, and that's why I have Agent Mike Abadir on the show. Mike, are you there? Are you there, Mike?
I'm with you. How are you, sir?
Very good. Thank you very much for joining us early. We really appreciate it. I know I had you scheduled at 11 o'clock, but we had some technical difficulties with our other guests, but just as well because, look, we've got so much material to go through. We really do. And we're even going to touch on the Kentucky Derby later because I know you're involved with horses as well. And so we have so much in terms of the NFL lockout, the NFL draft, the history of the NFL collective bargaining agreement, and the history of the NFLPA, the NFL Players, National Football League Players Association, the issues involved, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, the first thing I'd like to ask you to do, Mike, we have a caller. And callers, when you call in, I don't like to keep you on hold, so I'm going to get to the callers right away. We already have one caller calling up about the NFL lockout. Matter of fact, you know, before we go any further, let's go to Joe in El Cerrito. Joe, welcome to the Law of Sports with Ivan Gold. We're talking NFL draft, NFL lockout with NFL agent Mike Abadir from SAPRO Sports International. Welcome to the show. What do you got this morning?
Well, I'm just curious why this isn't getting a lot of press. And is this similar to the baseball strike? And is it all about greed? What's the real fundamental problem here? And has this happened before in this way? Just a little history and maybe what it's kind of like. And, you know, what are we dealing with here? Is this serious? Are we not going to have a season?
Okay, Joe, that's a good question. And that's a very appropriate question as we lead off. And I was basically going to ask you a question along those same lines. Why don't you get all the listeners, all 50,000 of them, up to date on what is really happening here, because we're all in the dark. We really don't know what's going on. And, hey, are we going to have this season or not, Mike? Let's start from the beginning, and let's break it down and get us up to speed on what is really going on here.
Okay, well, there are several key issues that really are, you know, get to the crux of the problem here when it comes to the owners and the players. Okay, so let me just quickly walk you through some of the issues that are involved.
Yes, please.
Okay. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the collective bargaining agreement expiring as of March. Okay, so that means that there's no CBA in place. When there's no agreement in place, they can't move forward. Now, why can't they?
Okay, when you say they can't move forward, I'm going to pick your brain on this, Mike. Now, what do you mean they can't move forward without a collective bargaining agreement?
They can conduct business in any way, shape, or form.
And now, conducting business is what? What is conducting business?
Day-to-day operations, signing players and free agents, releasing players, requiring players to come into the facility to work out, conducting practices, anything of that nature relating to the club and their team is not going to be conducted until they have a deal in place.
And a deal is a collective bargaining agreement. So without an agreement between the players and owners, business has basically come to a standstill.
Exactly.
Okay, proceed, please.
Okay, so a lot of people are asking, why don't these guys just, you know, sit down, hash out these issues? Okay, and that's what they've sort of been trying to do. You don't hear about them doing that as much right now because of some of the judicial issues and the court involvement and that type of thing. But the things that are separating them right now are this. Under the previous agreement, Ivan, every $1 billion of revenue that came in went straight to the owners, the first billion. The remaining monies that are generated by the league are then divided into revenue sharing. So, for example, let's just say the league makes $4 billion. The first billion, they go to the owners. Then they're going to split the remaining $3 billion. And that's how it's been. That's how they've coexisted.
That's under the previous collective bargaining agreement. The owners would take their first billion in profit.
Exactly.
Okay. Now what? The players are opposed to that?
Well, it's kind of one of those things where everything is fine and dandy until the owners get together and sit down and look at it and say, well, they were okay getting X amount, and now it's Y amount, and Y amount is double what X amount was, so they're making a whole heck of a lot more. We should take not just the first billion, but we should take the second billion as well.
So they want to increase their take off the top from $1 billion under the old agreement to $2 billion under the new agreement with that they proposed. Okay.
Exactly. So they want to take $2 billion. Okay. Which, by the way, amounts to about an 18% take up for the players. Skimming that second billion off would be about 18%.
Okay. So when you say 18% pay cut for the players, and Joe from El Cerrito, I'll let you chime in on this in just a minute. Thank you for holding. When you said 18% pay cut, define that. How is that going to work? Is that in terms of the total salary cap? Is that going to be across-the-board salary cut? Please flesh out that issue.
Exactly. It's about the salary cap. So the salary cap would be 18% higher if you had another billion.
Okay. Okay. So how can the players have an 18% cut in pay if the salary cap is going to be higher? I mean, I see what you're saying. You're saying if the owners take an extra billion, okay.
Yeah, let me just use like simple terms, and I'm going to round up a little bit, and let's just call it 20%. Okay. So it's just as if the salary cap would be 100 million, but instead it's 80 million.
I see.
That'd be a 20% cut, right?
I see.
So
the owners want to cut the salary cap. They want to cut the amount that the players can get under the salary cap, and they want to take an extra billion for themselves.
You know, I don't want to phrase it that way, and the reason for that is this. Because issue number 2 is that they want to reduce the revenue split with the players as well. So the players want a 50-50 split, okay? And I'm going to run it through some numbers to really drive home the point.
Yes,
but they want a 50-50 split, and the owners want a 58-42 split. So what am I talking about here? Let's just say, once again, let's just use round numbers. Let's say there's $10 billion in revenue generated. Okay? So under the old agreement, the owners would take the first billion, and now you're going to split the $9 billion, and let's call it 50-50. So $4.5 billion on each side. Under the new proposal, the same $10 billion in revenue generated, owners not just take the first billion, but they take the second billion. So that now instead of 9, we're left with 8, right?
Okay, so the owners are proposing. Hold on, Mike. I want to go slow because I want the listeners to understand this. And Joe, you can chime in after this. You're saying the owners want to take an extra billion off the top to go from 1 to 2, and they want to increase their split they want to have their split at 58-42, and the players are at 50-50. Okay, Joe, chime in. You've been holding from El Cerrito. Follow that up, please, for Mike Abadir.
It's all about the dollars, I guess. That's what it always comes down to.
Well, so as a fan, so what is your take on all this? You're calling here. You're on the air. I mean, what's your perception of all this?
I don't think they care about the fans. I think they care about the dollars. It's like the baseball strike was, and I'm concerned that NFL is going to be affected in a negative way like the baseball strike affected baseball.
Okay, Mike, and I want you to break down these numbers specifically in just a moment, but I want you to address that question from the caller. Do you think that the owners and players are losing sight of the bigger picture, and that in the long run, even with these numbers, that ultimately football will suffer more in the long run, that the revenues will actually decrease and there'll be problems, which actually led to the steroid scandal in Major League Baseball? A lot of it was because of the strike, and ultimately it came back to haunt them with the owners and the commissioner approving of steroids implicitly, which ultimately brought down the game. They did that because they were hurting at the gate after the strike. The fans were so upset they wouldn't come back to the ballpark. Is that going to happen with the NFL? In other words, the owners may get the numbers they want, but the fans are going to stay away.
Hard to tell. It's hard to tell what the impact is going to be. A couple things to keep in mind here is this. The difference between this labor dispute and previous ones, whether it be in the NFL's history or in any of the other leagues, is this. No league has ever thrived like the NFL has over these last 2 years during any labor dispute scenario. No league has even come close. So it's tough to tell when a league is just peaking like it is, what the impact is going to be. Now, do I think that there's going to be a reduction in revenues? I'm not so sure about that because the TV deals are so high, and they guarantee the league a certain dollar amount that is going to ensure that they're profitable. Keep in mind, gate receipts, you know, if fans boycott, when you're talking about 8 home games, you know what I mean? So I don't think the impact is going to be that drastic. I think the owners know that. They're taking advantage of the situation to a degree. They know that the fans are going to come back to the game. They're going to view it on TV. The fans are going to be diehard. They're going to be ready for their football. And, you know, so in that sense, that's probably why they feel they have so much leverage in the situation.
Okay, great.
Am I still with you, Ivan?
This is Joe. I'm still here. Ivan, you there?
Yes, I'm here. That was Rick Barrett on the other line, so I had to kind of go off the air a little bit. Okay, Mike, so continue, please.
I just feel bad as a fan that feels like I got to pay a lot of money to go to a game, and it ain't enough money. I just feel, you know, like, how much is enough?
You know, that's a good point, Mike. I mean, you know, how much is enough? I mean, when you hear these numbers, these $1 billion, $2 billion, it just makes you want to vomit. I mean, you know, I can see where the players, you know, I'll tell you, after seeing this stuff, we're going to talk about it further, and I think we're going to have Rick Barry on in just a few minutes. This is radio, live radio. We want to get Rick on for 10 minutes, and we'll switch gears, and we'll go back to the NFL in just a minute. It just seems, I tell you, I'm almost on the side of the players now because, my God, the owners, I mean, how much is enough? $1 billion to $2 billion, 58, 40. I mean, my goodness. I mean, it seems like they're trying to scratch every last nickel. That's my take on it, Mike.
Well, you know what? It's not even enough, right? Because they want 2 more games. They want to increase it to an 18-game schedule too. On top of all that,
yeah.
So give me another $1 billion. Give me a bigger percentage, and you give me 2 more games. And I think that's probably why the players, you know, just haven't been able to move forward with this issue, because the NFL is looking for 3 really, really big things. Keep in mind, it's not that the players have asked for anything, right?
Yeah.
The owners opted out. Let's not forget that. The owners opted out of this. And they had the right to do so under the previous collective bargaining agreement, that after the 2010 season, they could opt out. And they exercised that right. And we were hoping that everybody would be incentivized to get back to the negotiating table and, you know, get together and in good faith negotiate something that was workable for both sides. And, you know, we just haven't gotten to that point right now.
Yeah, you know, I understand that. Yeah, you know, the owners locked him out. I mean, you know, you look at this, and I can see why the players want the owners to open up their books. Because you look at this, I mean, the owners want a lot here, and the players are going to really take it on the chin. And for the owners to cry poor, you know, I can see why the players want them to open up their books. I mean, they look like they're pretty far apart. I mean, you know, we're going to get into this more in just a little while. Let's take a quick break. We've got Rick. Mike, I want to bring you back in about 10, 15 minutes. We're going to get into the NFL draft. That's on the table now. We were breaking it all down. Super agent of Staff Pro Sports Management, Mike Abadir. Mike, thank you for holding on through that. I really appreciate it. Mike.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, look.
I'll step aside anytime for a Hall of Famer like Rick Barry. That was awesome.
Well, you know, we had the technical difficulties, and I brought you on earlier, and then Rick called and everything. But we always work it out in the law of sports. This show here, it's the best show on KNBR. The listeners say that because we go with the flow, and we say it the way it is, and the callers love it. Hey, let's take a call right now. Frank from Oakland. Frank, you're on the Law of Sports with Ivan Gold, talking NFL lockout. Super agent Mike Abadir. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, guys? I just wanted to touch on the lockout a little bit. The way I see it until somebody actually pushes these guys to do something, they're just gonna take it easy until the beginning of the season comes. So I don't see the lockout ending until, I want to say, at least late August. And I want to know if it does last that long, what do you see the effects on the rookies? Because they're not going to have any playbooks, any mini camps. I don't think any starters are going to be effective. Any rookie starters that are supposed to step in there and actually start, I don't think they're going to be very effective this season at all. And also I wanted to know if it does last that long, I mean, how do you see free agency going? I mean, it's going to be a ruckus trying to sign everybody so quickly and trying to get the new playbook from your new team. So, I mean, I see a lot of players staying with their original team because they already know what's going on with them. How do you feel about that?
Mike, how do you feel about that? And the issue, too, about the quality of the NFL game this year. Do you think if the strike goes on, it's going to affect Frank from Oakland says all those issues, those are great questions. Please address those. But also, is it going to affect the product this year?
Very, very, very good questions all the way around. Sounds like he is a real solid football mind there on him. But here, there's a few takes that I've got. First of all, as it pertains to the rookies, he hit it dead on. They're going to have a lot of problems this year. And my prediction is that you're going to have the most rookies in history get cut. The most draft picks in history get cut. And the reason is exactly what you said. These guys haven't gotten their playbooks, and it's just a matter of when do they get them now. You know, I'd say with every day that passes without the CBA in place to allow these guys to come in for rookie mini camps and things of that nature, with every day that passes, the chances of them making the team go down. So that's a big problem, right? I mean, if you're a rookie and it's July and you still don't have a playbook, how are you going to be able to get in there and show what you could do in the preseason, for example? And as far as the free agents, it's not only the existing free agents right now that are on the sidelines, which are about 500, I think, in total. But how about the rookie undrafted free agents? You know, keep something in mind, guys. Last Pro Bowl, there were 22 undrafted free agents that found a way to earn a roster spot on the Pro Bowl. Wow, there's no undrafted free agency this year.
Is that going to affect the quality of the game, Mike? I mean, are we going to see, unless they settle this thing soon, are we going to see an inferior NFL product? I mean, I'm serious. Is this going to be, and that could cause any team, I mean, it may be wide open this year. Who knows who may get to the Super Bowl if we have one this year? Do you think this is just going to make, you know, a total free-for-all? Who knows? Maybe the 49ers can get to the Super Bowl this year. I mean, is this going to affect just the whole dynamic of the league?
I think the teams that have a lot of pros on their club, you know, those guys are going to be training and have been training real hard, and they've been working out together, and they've been working out as teams, and you have Pro Bowlers that are pushing each other and training together out in Arizona and in Florida and in Texas and all over the place, really, Southern California. So I don't think that the quality of the NFL is really going to suffer at all, especially from the teams that have a lot of these pros, these veterans that know what they're doing.
You know, in the NBA, players, when they had their lockout, they practiced together on their own. I mean, do you see these NFL players sort of huddling up and practicing on their own? Could that be a scenario?
They are. Actually, I've got several clients that are working out together in Arizona, and ESPN is actually in the midst of doing, you know, some type of program on that and what they're seeing, what they're reporting. And, you know, you have guys like Donovan McNabb and Larry Fitzgerald and, you know, Pro Bowlers and 10-year vets and things of that nature, and they're going out there busting their butt on their own and getting together with, you know, teammates and NFL mates and colleagues and things of that nature. So I don't think that the quality is going to suffer. But like I said, and like the caller alluded to, the rookie play, you know, is going to definitely suffer. And you're going to have a lot of these guys that normally might make the teams that just aren't going to be able to make it.
Especially like the 49er quarterback who was drafted in the second round. Frank, you have a follow-up question for Mike Abadir.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on again, how do you see free agency going? I see it as a lot of players are going to stay with their team so that they don't have to learn a new system in such a short time.
You think
how do you feel about that? I mean, if the lockout lasts until August or early September, I don't see a lot of guys trying to move teams and trying to learn the system within less than a month.
You think so, Frank? You think so, Mike? This is going to restrict free agency. Players are going to be a little bit shy about moving to other teams at this point.
Frank, it's really going to depend on when the lockout ends and when they can start signing guys. Right? If things, you know, come to a close within the next 2-3 weeks, I'm not sure that you're going to see a big effect, a drastic effect that is a whole heck of a lot different than in previous years. However, if you have this push out until the end of either July or August, absolutely. I mean, I think you're going to have a situation where, you know, teams aren't going to be able to bring in certain guys and learn the playbook. It's just too late into the campaign. Now, there's going to be certain guys that can come in and make an impact depending on their position. You know, you saw Randy Moss last year, although he didn't really make too much of an impact, but he played on 3 different clubs and, probably was able to grasp their offensive system and scheme and things of that nature. But you're not going to have a quarterback do that. And I know that there are a lot of teams that want to bring in the likes of a Kevin Kolb from Philadelphia, for example, or someone of that nature that can come in and start right out of the gate. I'm not sure that you're going to do that. And in the NFC West, you brought up the 49ers, where that's probably the division that has the most uncertainty at the quarterback position. 8-8 or 7-9, I think, was the division winner with Seattle last year. I don't know. We might be looking at 6-10.
It's almost like the olden days now, before free agency, when the players pretty much stay with their teams. That's what we're going back to, kind of the pre-free agency era. It's going to be interesting. Frank, thank you very, very much for the call. I appreciate it. Excellent questions. Let's go to Erwin and Alameda. I don't like to keep callers on hold on Saturday morning. Welcome to the Law of Sports. You've been holding a long time. I appreciate it. Mike Abadir, Sapro Sports Management, talking NFL lockout, NFL draft. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Ivan. I appreciate it. I also wonder if you'll be on next week after your comment about the owners and the commission, the steroids.
Hey, I tell it like it is. Hey, remember, callers and listeners, I am an attorney, so I can say whatever I want. Don't ever forget that.
Well, you and I have talked about it, but you're the first time I've ever heard it out there in the airwaves.
Well, go ahead. Welcome to the show, and shoot a question for sports agent, NFL agent, Sapro Sports Management, Mike Abadir. You're on the air.
Okay, I've been following this thing on and off, and like all the strikes nowadays, it all does seem to be about the money. And so has anybody done any kind of surveys to see if there has been a drop in attendance over the last couple of years? I know the team over on this side of the bay, the Raiders, never draw anymore. There's a lot of other things involved with that.
Well, the Raiders have had some good. They've had some games where they filled those seats. They I would say that. That's an unfair characterization. They never draw anymore. They have some games where they've had some good attendance.
Yeah, but are you saying that? I mean, there was a time there they could have a really terrible record. They had diehard fans. It's a different fan base now, and I also think I think the owners are really underestimating the economy at this point, and to want another, and since we're using the billions in the explanation, another $1 billion and another hundreds of millions of dollars, I think they really do not have an idea of what's going on with the vast majority of fans. It's less and less. It's a sport. Same thing with even baseball. It's less and less family sports. It's getting harder and harder.
Well, that's true. It's corporate. Okay, Mike, address that. Do you think, we kind of touched on this earlier, do you think that the owners, are underestimating the fan base? Or are their interests in terms of television revenue and other things, and their interests don't really include the fans? I mean, the fans kind of go along with everything else. And this gets to my question, and I think Erwin from Alameda is sort of getting this. We want to touch on this, and please explain this. What is the main source of revenue for the National Football League, for the owners?
TV deal, without a doubt.
And do they need fans at the ballpark, at the stadium?
Well, it's not a gate receipt driven league. When you have 8 home dates, it can be. It's driven by TV revenue, corporate sponsorship, things of that nature.
Yeah, but those companies.
Okay, Erwin from Alameda, let Mike Abadir explain his answer. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just saying, the NFL is less reliant on gate receipts than Major League Baseball and the NBA, and we know that just on the number of games, 162 versus 82 versus 16 with 8 home games. They can't rely on those 8 games. And keep something in mind when it comes to drawing fans and things of that nature. It does go beyond the product on the field, because there are some teams that draw year in, year out and have diehard fans, and regardless of the team's record, they're going to come out. Regardless of the lockout, they're going to come out. And then there are other clubs, even if they're a pretty good team or have been over the last few years, they may have venue issues. They may have an older venue. They've been asking the team, they've been asking the city to upgrade and to step up, to put together a new stadium. I know that was one of the things, the carrots that was dangled by the NFL to the city of Indianapolis, you build a new stadium, and you'll get the Super Bowl. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, there's still okay, everybody. Yeah. Okay, Mike, we have to take a quick break. Mike Irwin, stay on the line. We'll be right back. We're just fleshing this issue out. We have 40 minutes to go. It's a special edition of the Law of Sports. We're going until 12 o'clock, so we got time. We're going to talk about the revenue stuff. We're going to get into the court proceedings, the NFL lockout, the draft. We're going to touch on the Kentucky Derby. We've got more to go. Irwin, Jim, all the callers, stay on the line. We'll get back to you guys. We'll be right back after this brief timeout. The Law of Sports. Okay. Show. It's always provocative, always exciting. And we're talking NFL lockout, NFL draft with agent Mike Abadir from Sapro Sports Management. We're going to go back to the callers. I just want to assure all the listeners and callers that I'm true to my word on every guest. Rick Berry was on the last hour after technical difficulties. We have Michael Vick coming up. We have Chris Rock coming up, and we're working on getting Willie Mays. And these are all for 45-minute in-depth interviews. I'm always true to my word on every guest. And that's going to be the way it is. Okay, we're talking the lockout. We're going to go through it. We have another 35 minutes to go. It's a special edition of the Law of Sports. We're on until 11. Irwin, you've been so patient from Alameda and Holding. Please, you've got the floor. Mike Abadir, Sapro Sports Management, NFL lockout.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but, you know, I'm following, as most of us are today, revenue, money, and watching our retirement and various other things sort of fly away. And, you know, even NBC and the NFL and all these people who look incredibly solvent, their pocketbooks are not, you know, incredibly deep. When you can knock GM off, I don't think anybody's sacred anymore. And it's about putting a big product out, a great product out. I don't think I was going to talk about that with Rick Berry. I personally, and I guess it's a sign of me getting old, I think a lot of the product nowadays that are being put out in all the major league sports are not as good as they used to be.
Okay, but what is the point in terms of the lockout, though? I mean,
well, I think at some point you're getting diminishing returns. You know, I'm not going to pay $100 for the lousiest seat in the park.
But you heard Mike Abadir say it's not a fan-driven, it's not an attendance-driven league, it's a television revenue league. But that's the point. That's why the owners don't care about the fans.
Advertisement event. Why is it corporate-driven and sponsor-driven and all that? It's because ultimately you're selling a product. Well, if people don't watch, even if it's free.
But people will watch. Let me jump to Mike. Mike, how did football go from a fan attendance-driven league to a corporate-driven league in the last 20, 25 years?
Let me give you an interesting statistic. Remember when back in the days, or at least through the 80s, you had NFL on CBS.
Right.
The CBS had the NFC, and NBC had the AFC. Fox came in, won rights, and CBS was without the NFL. I don't remember how many years. Do you, Ivan? Maybe about 10?
Yes,
10 years
at least. At least.
Okay. Before CBS's deal expired, they were number one across the board on most of their primetime Monday through Friday television shows.
Right.
Once they lost it, and of course, a lot of that has to do with that cable and DirecTV and Dish and more channels and more opportunities, but most of their shows dropped to 35th into the 50 range in terms of ratings. Then what happens? They bring back the NFL, and guess what? They have, I think, like 5 of the top 12 shows ratings-wise, primetime television, led by 2.5 Men, I think. That tells you a lot. You know, these networks are able to really pump out a lot of advertisements for their product, for the shows that are going to be their big breadwinners. And then when you have the top-rated show, like 2.5 Men, you could command top dollar from all your advertisers. And guess what? Then you could still go back and demand top dollars for those advertising on your NFL games.
You know, it's fascinating how the NFL, let me just chime in, it's fascinating how the NFL has become such a television driven gaming, most of the people, the majority of people, are watching these games on television. Even for NFL teams that aren't drawing at the gate for a lot of reasons, fans are still watching these games on television. It's just the NFL has really become a television game. That's what it seems like.
There's a reason now we have games on Thursday, on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 4 days a week now. If we could, we would. And remember, now we have extra games on Thanksgiving. Right. If we could, we would have a Monday through Sunday.
And that's unlike baseball.
They're going to wind up with 18 games, absolutely.
And that's unlike baseball, where baseball is a fan-driven, attendance-driven game. And that's when the teams don't draw, and that's what the A's have been squabbling about for so long. When they don't draw, they want to get out. That's the problem with the NFL. They could have 10 people in the stands. They would still make money, really.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and it flabbergasts me that it's really not the product. People watch, the great example of what you're saying, and I'm shooting myself in the foot with this, is the advertising at the Super Bowl and how much money they generate for advertising at the Super Bowl. It's ludicrous, but they realize that, half the world is watching this, and far be it from me to wish them ill will, but I don't get it.
Well, it's true. Hey, look, I go to NFL games. I attend NFL games. I have since the late 60s, okay? An NFL game is not the easiest thing to attend. A lot of people make a weekend of it. They have their campers there. They tailgate. It's not easy to go to an NFL game. It's crowded. You have to park. You have to walk in there. It's so much easier. You get these big screens. You have your friends come over. You're drinking beer. It's sort of a big party. And you go to the bars, and that's the way the NFL has sort of geared their product. I'm just wondering, Mike, where's the corporate sponsorship? Where did all the corporations, when did they get into the scene, and when did they start taking over the NFL?
Well, I like the point that you just made. There's something to be said about the NFL's visionary approach to the business, right? Visionary meaning they're able to kind of forecast what's going to happen and to predict what the average fan is going to do. And what the average fan is doing now is buying that heavily discounted and reduced price tag television, right? The 50-inch HD quality. They're able to, know the scenario, 1st and 10, or whatever the case may be, because it's really crisp and clear on their screen versus sitting in the stands, maybe having a seat in the nosebleeds or things of that nature. There's something to be said for being able to enjoy your football and be able to watch the game afterwards, right?
All right, and watch another game after that. There's another game that follows that game. You watch the halftime show. You watch the post-game show. You watch the NFL channel. It's a big television production. Erwin, I give you one more question. I got other callers. Quick, go ahead.
No, you've pretty much answered it. But I just hope that they, keep an eye on what's going on, because fans at some point will stop buying, and that's when I think it's going to hit the fan. And the other one is that you got to worry about ultimately the safety of the players, which doesn't seem again to enter into it.
We're going to get to that on another show, and you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, Erwin. Thanks for the call. Thank you very much.
Before we let Erwin go, can I ask him 2 quick questions?
Go ahead, do it quickly, you guys.
Erwin, if you're still on, my friend, let me ask you: do you plan to watch games once the season resumes?
I watched some. Admittedly, I'm a devout baseball fan, which means right now I'm sitting here ripping my stomach out and hoping something happens.
Okay, but during the football season, you're going to keep watching, Erwin. Okay, question.
But once 8 weeks into the season, I'm watching 2, 3 games, 4 games a week.
Okay, Mike, next question for Erwin, the caller. See, I allow the callers and the guests to interact directly. Go ahead.
Well, and I think the NFL is banking on the fact that most guys are going to come back and watch the game. No matter how much they bitch and moan or bicker about it, they will be the TV sets on Sundays. And I think everybody kind of feels the same way, no matter how bitter.
Ask Erwin another question, Mike. Ask him the next question.
Well, the next question is, how many games have you attended in person over the last 5 years?
I have attended 3 over the last 5 years, of which I was given 2 sets of free tickets.
So not many games, Mike. See, that's the typical fan.
I think there you go. I think that perfectly encompasses what we expect as a league and what we expect out of people. They get freebies, they're going to go. Otherwise,
and I'll also tell you that I grew up in New York, and so I see the Giants when they're out here, and I see the Jets when they're out here, and it doesn't matter whether they're playing the Niners or the Raiders.
Thank you very much, Erwin. Thank you very much for the call. Let's go to Jim in Oakland. I want to get all the callers on. Jim, thank you for holding on with Mike Abadir, Sapro Sports Management. We're talking NFL lockout, NFL draft. We're going to get to that, too. We're even going to touch on the Kentucky Derby. Welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. How's it going? I was just wondering what exactly is stopping these guys from getting these contracts taken care of. I mean, is it just over money or is it over retirement? What exactly do both sides want?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Jim from Oakland. Hey, Mike, address the retired players. You know, we're talking that, too. I mean, address that. That's not exactly what Jim asked, but that's what sparked the idea in my mind. How much of this is going for the retired players and pensions and all? Break that down for us.
You know, it's what I consider the top 5 hot button issues. You know, that as well as that increase in the $2 billion and the revenue split and things of that nature.
Yes.
That's one of the top 5 issues. You know, unfortunately, I personally don't have a solution. It's a very complex problem. It needs to be addressed, and I think that's the problem here. Coming up with a solution to this is very, very challenging.
We'll talk about the retirement funds. Look, I'm looking at the owners want $2 billion off the top instead of $1 billion. They want a 58-42 revenue split. Where is the interest in the retired player? How come I don't see anything about the retired players? How much money is how are the pensions going to increase? What does the NFLPA want? What do the owners want? Again, it just seems to be the retired players are getting the shaft on this. What's the issue on the retired players and the pensions?
Unfortunately, I think you're right to a degree. I think this is an issue that even though it's on everybody's minds, I'm not so sure that it's being addressed as a priority issue right. I think the way that they look at it is once we agree on the percentages on all the big areas, then we're going to see what we're left with and then figure it out. And you know, unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it is. And
that's very poignant. That's very poignant, Mike, that you say that. That's a very profound statement that you just said. That, you know, we'll do all the other stuff, and then we'll just figure out what's left over for the retired players. Jim, do you have another question for Mike? We've got to take a break in just a minute. If you'd like to hold. Jim, can you hold through the break?
Yeah, I can hold.
Jim, hold through the break. Let's take a quick break. My producer's yelling in my ear once again. We'll be right back. The Law of Sports, more callers, NFL lockout, NFL draft. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Site with a lot of callers. Hey, I appreciate everybody participating in the show. I want to give a shout-out for the Maritza Hair Salon. They're the best. Philip, Michael, Russell, Maritza, you guys are the best. They're on 166 Geary, 415-392-2441. They're outstanding, man. They take care of a lot of the athletes. They take care of everybody, the celebs, and it's the top place in San Francisco. They're my friends, so I got to give a quick shout-out to them. Okay, let's get back to the phones. Jim, you had a question. We were talking NFL lockout. We're talking all the issues. Jim, go ahead. You're back with Mike Abadir, South Pro Sports Management. Continue, please.
Well, the only thought that I have is this, is that if, all the other major sports, their contracts are running out as well. And I guess everybody's looking to the NFL. They're going to kind of set the precedent for the rest of major sports.
Now that is a good point. Look, the Major League Baseball agreement is ready to expire in December. The NBA, and I was going to ask Rick Barry about that, their collective bargaining agreement is going to expire. Mike, give your take on that. Is the NFL, are they going to kind of set the tone for all the other sports?
I don't think so.
Tell me why.
The NFL stands on its own when it comes to this labor agreement and the agreements that are about to expire for the other leagues, because the NFL is thriving so much, and the profits, the revenues that are generated are just so enormous. Whereas in the NBA, when you look at it, there are franchises that are losing money hand over fist year in, year out. And I don't remember the exact stat. I don't want David Stern calling me up and telling me I cited something incorrectly, but I believe that the NBA has to borrow from a reserve fund about $200 million to continue operating. We're talking about a very, very different financial situation, a very different economic structure. And in NBA, you actually have owners that can tell the players, we'll open up your books to you, that we're losing money. Whereas the NFL, they don't have a willingness to open up their books because they're not losing money. They're making a tremendous amount on a yearly basis. And they would never open up their books and show that not just did we make a ton of money, but we also spent $150,000 flying in a special guest to attend the game for the first quarter, and then flying my nephew and his friends back home. Right? Things of that nature that the owners do, and they can do because they own these teams. But when you open up your books, you're going to subject yourself to scrutiny in terms of how you spend your money frivolously. Well, I shouldn't say frivolous.
Hey, they'll never do it. Let me tell you, you know what? They should do it. I see where the players are coming from. But when you look at these numbers here, there's no way they're going to do it because they're asking for a lot of dinero, these owners are. There's no way they're going to open up their books. They're asking for a lot, $1 billion to $2 billion, 58-42 revenue split, 18-game schedule, rookie salary cap. They want the world. You know what I'd like? You know what would be crazy? And I don't think KNBR would like it, is to have NFL football, Major League Baseball, and the NBA all on strike on the same time. Now, that would be incredible. Riley from Bodega Bay. Hey, look, I love the regular callers. I've got fans out here. It's beautiful. The show's doing well. Riley, welcome to the Law of Sports.
What's happening, Ivan? First off, great show. And what I love about your show is how you tackle social issues as well as sports issues.
Well, that's what we try to do here. We tell it like it is. I'm not afraid. Look, as an attorney, a legal commentator, I can say anything because I'm an advocate, okay? I'm an advocate. I'm immune from prosecution. I hope so anyway. Okay, welcome to the show, Riley. Go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted.
You always touch on like gay athletes and stuff like, which you don't hear on other shows. But my question is to you and your guests is, do you think we should close Guantanamo Bay? And also, do you think the record will ever be broken?
Riley, you haven't been drinking again, have you? I told you do not drink before you call the show.
It's more important than sports, but this Sheikh Khalid Mohammed, this guy was waterboarded 168 times.
Okay, Riley, come on, get to the point. We got to catch off, man.
Okay, so this guy was waterboarded 168 times in March of 2003. Do you think that record will be beaten? I would like to see. I think.
Okay, what does it have to do with the NFL lockout? Come on.
Not a lot, but it's this week I'm still on the high from our great military shooting.
Well, that's true. We got to tip our caps to the U.S. military. Okay, but quickly, come on, because time is going on. We got a lot of callers on the line. Come on.
That bullet. I'd like to see the picture too. I'd like to see half his brain splattered all over.
Okay, hey Riley, look, callers, when you call up, please, no intoxication. I know it's Saturday morning. It's been a long week. But please, keep everything together. We get that from time to time. Sorry about that, Mike. Okay, so let's try to refocus here. I tell you, some of the callers, I got to apologize on behalf of some of my fans, some of my callers. Sometimes they're a little bit offbeat, a little bit out there, but that's just the nature of live radio. And I'll tell you, this show has been something else. That's live radio, unlike television. I do television, and believe me, television is very structured, very exact, precise. Radio is the complete opposite, and it makes it fun. It makes it enjoyable. But, Mike, thanks for going with the flow with us here.
Absolutely. You got a fun crowd, it looks like.
Yeah. Hey, Mike, this is what I want to break down. I want to get into the procedural issues with the courts, okay? I want to talk about this whole thing in terms of the injunction, where it is in the federal courts, the fact that the lockout was lifted, the union was decertified. Can you discuss the procedural issues so the listeners understand this? This has never been explained to me in any show, in any media outlet, because most of the talk show hosts, the media people, just simply don't understand it, so they won't talk about it. They only talk about what they understand, and it's not much at times. Let's go through the procedural stuff. It's not boring. It's fascinating. It's our history, the union's history. It's U.S. history. Explain it in terms of the lockout and the National Football League Players Association, please.
Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of key highlights just in terms of what's going on right now and how this may play out. The first thing is, what's been most recently covered by the media and on the news, what's been most relevant in the courts is this whole issue of the lockout is on, the lockout is not on, they hear the term stay, things of that nature. So let me just get into that for a quick moment. We can kind of spin into a few different directions from there. But basically, what happened about a week and a half ago was that Judge Nelson from the U.S. District Court had basically ruled that an injunction preventing this lockout should take place. Okay? And what happened was you had a 3-judge panel that ordered the lifting of the lockout.
Now, why did they order the lifting of the lockout? What was the basis for the 3-judge panel ordering the lifting of the lockout?
Well, the bottom line of it is this. What the NFL argued was that the court just didn't have the, jurisdiction, if you will, because there was an act that was passed in the 1920s that said that it basically barred federal courts from interfering in labor disputes. Okay, so what the NFL argued was, now you have the courts jumping in and getting involved, and at the federal level, they don't have jurisdiction to even rule over this.
Okay, so it's a jurisdictional issue. Okay.
Yeah, 2 out of the 3 judges agreed, right? And the dissenting judge basically said, that a temporary stay should only be issued in emergency, right? Whereas the NFL was arguing that there could be irreparable harm if they weren't victorious in arguing these issues.
Okay.
Right?
Now,
and how would there be irreparable harm? Well, you're going to have absolute chaos. Let's just say for a moment that last Friday, instead of the lockout being back on, it would continue to be lifted. What you would have had for the days that it was off was teams, possibly, I don't want to use the word stealing, but signing players from other teams while other ones are on strict orders to do nothing and to not act. And now all of a sudden you're going to have a complete, uproar in roster reshuffling and things of that nature. So it's better for the ownership to be on the same page and unified and to all do nothing.
yes.
To all do just nothing. And that's exactly what happened. Nobody signed anybody. Nobody stepped on anybody's toes or anything of that nature. So that's kind of how the last couple of weeks have gone down.
That's fascinating. Tell me, it's interesting. Talk about what the players, how they talk about decertification. That's the issue I was searching for. Explain to the listeners, what is decertification? What is the significance of the union being decertified? What does it mean? Define the whole issue of decertification, please.
It's actually a lot simpler than it sounds. The bottom line is that the union, acting as a union and moving forward as a union with the negotiations and things of that nature, that's the only way that the NFL can get around these antitrust laws, right? Is to negotiate collectively, collectively bargain and come up with an agreement. So,
now explain briefly the antitrust law. Okay, why is that? Why is that, Mike Abadir from Sapro Sports Management? You're an NFL agent. Why, to get around the antitrust laws, explain why they have to get around the antitrust laws.
Because if you don't, then you're going to have illegal monopoly, right? So the way you get around that is if all the parties involved agree that we're okay with this and it's collectively bargained for, the law gives the unions and the owners the ability to be able to negotiate contrary what the monopoly laws state.
Okay, so decertification, what is decertification accomplishes what?
The owners can't lock out a group if there's no union. There's nobody to lock out. So if you decertify, then you have, who are the owners going to lock out then? You tell me. There's nobody to lock out at that point. So what they basically was, we're going to decertify our union. That way the owners have nobody to lock out. And then from there, the owners, we already knew, we're going to come back and say, well, this is kind of a sham of a decertification. You guys are acting like a union and negotiating like a union. You're instructing your union members. It's kind of one of those.
Mike, did the courts address that issue? Did the owners say in their legal briefs it's a sham, the decertification is a sham? Did the court address that issue at all in their decision?
That's an issue that's probably going to be resolved in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So not yet.
That's interesting. Okay, so when is the next court date, and what are they arguing? And tell me about that. When is the next court date, and could the courts again order the player? Could they lift the lockout? Could that possibly occur again?
Yeah, anything is possible right now, and it's really
because my feeling is if the courts lift the lockout and the players go back to work, then we're going to have a settlement for sure. That's where we're going to put the leverage on the owners. If the lockout is imposed, continuing to be imposed, that's a victory for the owners, and they can really press the players and force the players to settle. That's my take on it.
You know what, though? Maybe you'll agree with me to this. I think people kind of, live to meet deadlines, and until their backs are up against the wall and there's no pressure, no urgency, I'm not so sure that anything is going to get done anyway, right? But once you have a deadline set forth for if you don't get something done by July 25th, you're going to start missing time. You're going to start missing games. Then I think at that point, once it's a real threat and the players, are looking at possibly missing games, which every game adds up to a certain percentage of a player's career since they're so short-lived, then I think at that point, when you're looking at not getting that paycheck come September, and it's a reality, and the reality is only 30, 45 days away, at that point you're going to get real serious about the negotiation.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to happen between now and then, to be honest with you, Ivan.
No, but I still think that judge's decision is critical. I really do. Okay, we've got about 6-7 minutes left. I want to touch on the draft of both parties, the Raiders and the 49ers. Tell me, and we'll talk about the Kentucky Derby as well. That's today also. Break down the Raider draft. Give me your take on the Raider draft.
Well, I think the Raider draft was, from top to bottom, it was pretty solid. At the top there.
I'm hearing good things about Wisniewski, about Stefan Wisniewski, Steve Wisniewski's nephew. He's going to come in as a center for
there, right?
Pardon me?
It's good to see that Wisniewski name on the back of a jersey, Raider jersey once again. I think that's a two-part analysis on that, because it's just as much what we see, on film from Wisniewski, but also who we're losing, right? And the Raiders are going to be losing Gallery, and Samson Cecilia, the center, might leave in free agency.
That's interesting.
They're going to have some big holes on the offensive line, and they wanted to make sure to plug it up with their interior offensive line. A guy that can play center, he can play guard. He'll shore that up. He's a tough guy, and he's not the most athletic guy. He's not like Bruce Campbell, who they got in the 4th round last year. That guy was so athletic, he could probably compete to be a tight end.
Yeah.
Right? But what Wisniewski does is he brings a gritty approach to the game. I think he's going to be a good, solid player for them in the long run. I think the Raiders made the best of their picks, keeping in mind they didn't have a first-rounder this year.
Yeah, it's interesting how you have to draft players in anticipation of free agency. You think you're going to lose this player and that player, so you have to draft to plug the holes in anticipation of free agency. That's just the way the game is now. What about the San Francisco 49ers? Tell me in particular, what do you think about taking that quarterback? Do you anticipate? I think he may play. He may start this year. What's your take on that?
I don't know about, whether or not he's going to start. I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Are they going to be able to sign a free agent quarterback? And with everything being up in the air, I'm not so sure that they're going to be able to get the guy that they want and get him in time to be a starter. So
I think by the end of the season, the rookie will be playing. I just have that feeling.
I kind of have a feeling too, but it's also going to depend on where they're at in the standings in comparison to the other 3 teams in their division. It's still a down division. It looks like the Rams are the only team that really have a bona fide quarterback that they could trust to lead them into the last stretch of the season. Bradford did pretty well in his last stretch as a rookie. But I think it's going to depend on large part. Is this a project season and a rebuild again? Or is this a team that's geared for making a playoff run, since they know they could probably get there with 8 wins?
Yeah.
Right? I think Kaepernick is a better pick, in my opinion, than their first-round pick, the defensive end.
Why do you say that? Why do you say that?
Well, he's got some versatility, but I'm not so sure that he was, graded high enough to be the 7th pick overall. But, with this draft, it's such a crapshoot. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong in the future. Just as teams have been wrong with 1st and 2nd overall picks. It's a real tough guessing game here, but all I know is that they could have gotten him, much later on. Not much, but relatively speaking, later on. I don't know I don't know if anybody really had him pegged as the 7th pick overall grade-wise.
And the 49ers have had some problems with linemen. They made some good picks at the linebacker position, but as far as linemen, it's kind of been hit and miss the last 6, 7, 8 years. They've sort of taken these guys you don't really know. They're surprise picks, and, hey, they need it. The 49ers need the help up front. They need that pass rush. They needed that for a long time. Okay, hey, let's move on to the Kentucky Derby. We've got about 2-3 minutes left. It's a 20-horse field. Mike, you're in that industry. You're in the ownership of horses as well. I see 20 horses here, and the post time is 3:24 for the Kentucky Derby, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, we are talking horse racing on the Law of Sports with Ivan Gold because this is an odds maker's game, horse racing. What's fascinating to me about this race, Mike, is I look at horses 40-1, 47-1, 35-1, 28-1, 25-1, 21-1. 20-1. The favorite is 6-1. I mean, what is your take on that?
Well, I mean, the Kentucky Derby this year is really interesting because you have a very, very evenly balanced field and no clear-cut favorite. The only favorite was Uncle Mo, and he was scratched. He was the horse that was getting a lot of publicity out of New York. He's had a brilliant 2- and 3-year-old career so far. 6-1 being the favorite, I'm not surprised with this field. Anything can happen. I think this sets up to be a highly contested pace at the outset, and I think it's going to set up for the closers.
Should I put $10 on all these long shots to win and hope one of them wins? All these horses that are over 20-1 or what? I mean, give me some strategy. I'm just a novice. Give me some strategy, Mike.
Ivan, if you want to put $10 to win on some long shots.
I don't condone gambling, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Now tell me that again.
Fantasy money, right?
Yeah.
From a spectator's perspective, I would look at number 2, Speed. And I would look at number 9, Derby Kitten. And I would look at number 17, Sold Out. Those are the 3 horses that I think can come off the pace and be able to steal a victory in this Kentucky Derby. It's going to be a real exciting one.
Derby Kitten, that's 28-1, Mike. I'm going to take your word for that. I want $10 on Derby Kitten at 28-1. Any other hints, Mike? The Kentucky Derby, I talk about an elite sport, and some of these NFL owners have some, don't you see a lot of the NFL, there's some NFL sort of residue around horses. I mean, I was in the industry and when I worked in the NFL, and it seemed like horse racing, horses, it's kind of part of the NFL in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And every year when they show the celebs that are in Louisville for this race, you'll see coverage on NFL, players or coaches, or whether it be a Terrell Owens or Rick Pitino from basketball, or God rest his soul, George Steinbrenner and baseball. Athletes and the horse racing industry have kind of gone hand in hand. And of course, Kentucky Derby is the elite of the elite when it comes to the who's who in the entertainment industry and in the entertainment world. But this is an industry that's kind of going through a period of trying to find that superstar to cling on to. And there aren't a lot of stars. It's kind of like boxing. You don't have a lot of superstars that are solidifying the industry.
No more Muhammad Ali or Sugar Ray Leonard.
No, not at all.
And by the way, boxing, don't forget Pacquiao and Shane Mosley tonight. I want to throw that in.
That should be a good one.
Mike,
a good one too.
Thank you very, very much. And one thing about horse racing, we could talk about sports and horse racing. Sports racing is illegal. You can gamble on it legally. So we're not talking about any off-track betting or betting on sports that are not legal. It's legal in the state of California to bet on horse racing. Mike, once again, thank you very, very much for appearing on the show, The Law of Sports with Ivan Gold. I want to have you on again as the NFL lockout proceeds, and I appreciate all your help and all your insight. And again, thank you very much for joining me.
You're very welcome. Anytime. Thank you. We'll talk lockout when we have some updates.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mike Abadir from Safro Sports Management.